We have import and export data. So let's import some data from a load file. So we select our client, we select our case. It automatically generates a job name. I like to recommend everyone kind of change this to something that better describes what kind of load file you're putting in. So I would do the ingestion date or the date it was produced to me. We'll call this DEF IDS. We'll say it's defendant's initial disclosure statement that they sent us a load file and all the files for. I like to do that because in the back end, it will create a folder for today's date because that's the day you ingested it. But then it'll create this folder based on the job name. So then I'll know a defendant's initial disclosure statement is what these documents were. That's what I ingested on this date and when they gave it to me. So then I can go find, the actual pleading that it's associated with. So if I ever do need to rebuild my database, I have paths of what I did, or if I need to defend my methodology for ingesting documentation, I have it and it's very clear. I don't have to guess, oh, well, just this was the job number, just go with me that this is what it is.
Got it.
This kind of definitively does that. Import file, so I browse up to where that file is. We suggest doing everything off a UNC path, whether it's native or ingestion, import kind of thing. We'll go to sample data, training data, SE training data, imports. It's a really long path. With load files, prod is typically this folder structure right here is generally what you're going to get. The rest is where you choose to save it. So then we'll go to load files and we're going to bring in the DAT file first. So the information. Number of sample records, just how many records do I want to see, kind of sift through. Is the first line a header? So we'll see that our columns are field 1, field 2, and then our first row that should be data is actually headers. So our first line is actually the header. So we can fix it. So now our columns are actually headers, and our first entry in our data line is actual data. So GLX1. And then we would just kind of want to look through this sample view and make sure, our custodian field is actually with a name and not some sort of number like a Bates number. That our mail sent date field is actually a date field and not someone's name or Ray history. If so, it might be a delimiter problem. Go ahead.
So this is it's usually in a perfect world. So data. So the DAT file is just the data, right? Which is going to be like the meta fields and everything. What is an LFP like exactly?
An LFP is another type. An LFP
Load
is
file, right? A load file in this.
Yeah, it's just another file. It can bring in tags and orientation, if I recall correctly.
Is that going to be like so? Is our best bet to get a DAT file? So if we're provided a DAT file, an LFP file, and what's the other one? It's a OLP. Which one do you recommend out of those three? Like if we want to.
So most of the time for US customers, that file is what's ingested. If they give you an LFP file and it has tagging, then you bring in the tagging.
Okay.
They just have to know what that LFP file has. Does it have tags associated? Did they give you tags? That kind of information.
So if you're provided a DAT file and an LFP file, say, so you'd want to import the DAT file first, and then would it be append the LFP onto the case?
I mean, you could.
Uh-huh.
Or you just bring in the LFP, ignore the DAT.
Got it.
Yep. Typically when you're getting it produced to you, no one's giving you tags.
Got it.
So in the US, DAT's pretty common that they'll give to you. In Canada, LFP is pretty common. And they don't give you DAT.
Okay.
Here, they mostly give you DAT.
Okay, that kind of makes sense now, because then usually like when we make our tickets, they'll give us the email and it'll be like .ca or .com, and then I see, it's like half and half is what I get. People kind of like, some people will be like, oh, here's my DAT file. A lot of people will be like, here's my LFP file. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, essentially they're the same. They all contain metadata fields. They all contain pathing, that kind of stuff. The LFP will bring in tags. Most people aren't giving you tags if they're opposing.
Got it.
They're not going to give you your work product. So just kind of see what they have. Some people give you all files possible just so that way they don't have to go and recreate something. So just bring in what you want. The stat file does not bring in the images, so you will have to import an OPT file, which is like an Opticon file. So we'll go through that process as well. It's the same process, just slightly different.
Okay.
So we're looking at these. These fields seem to be good. If they're not, we can change the delimiters here.
Okay.
I'll just show you real quick. If it comes in like this, obviously that's not right, right? Everything's going into one field. That doesn't look right. We could change our field delimiters until it looks right.
Okay.
Date format, this is what most people miss. So our date format here in our load file is month, day, year. We need to switch this date format to month, day, year. A lot of people miss that.
Got it.
You can do a batch import. It's pretty rare. You would have to have an exact duplicate kind of thing going on here. So if you had opposing counsel producing you their initial disclosure statement and they gave you a load file per custodian. So let's say all these records were related to custodian Ariana Ackers. And they gave you another load file that was related to Betty Drill or something like that.
Okay.
If the columns, the word heading matched exactly the same, they were in the exact same order, you could then also upload that other load file here and it would process it the same way.
Okay.
If anything was slightly off, it will mess up your database. So if this mail from and mail to were transposed in the other file, so the to came before the from, then it's going to mess up your to and from field because it's going to process it the same way it processed the first one.
So how would you do it? Would you just import them two separate ways into the case? Okay, got it.
Yep, just do it separately instead of a batch or a bulk.
Got it. Okay, so that's just mostly just for like an easy, if everything matches correctly, go ahead and do them two at the same time. But if they don't, then you have to do them one each.
Yeah.
Got it.
And typically you're only getting one DAT file anyway. People aren't breaking them up. But in the off chance you do get them broken up, you can do it that way.
No, that's good because in any curveball I get, it's always a good thing to know some sort of information on it.
Map fields. So you could load from a field template. You can save or export that template as well. You can select by field position. So that's going to say if it's the first metadata field in my database, it'll be matched up with the first one in the load file. That's not going to be typically the most accurate. Field name for our databases, as far as that goes, typically is going to be your best bet. It may or may not be in your database. It just depends on what they're giving you.
Okay.
If you guys have decided on terminology, like if the two parties have agreed that, okay, our custodian field is going to be called custodian, our beg doc field is going to be prod beg doc, those kinds of things. If you've agreed to the field names, then by field name is going to match up pretty nicely. If you didn't agree to them ahead of time, they might not match properly. If that happens, then you just code it yourself. So custodian name, I want that field, right? In my load file, it's called custodian name, but in my database, I don't have anything called custodian name. Now, I have a custodian field in my database. It's just not called custodian name.
Yeah.
So I just need to click in that area, use the drop down, and then find the field that I want to match up with, which in this case is just called custodian.
Okay.
So you just go through here and make sure everything matched up. Text path, I don't have anything called text path, but I do have a location for my text to go to, so I just need to find that. My database is called body. The next step are these paths right here. So these are dummy paths, right? I don't actually have data saved at C drive Eclipse SE production. This is a dummy path. I do have a folder somewhere called prod 001 that then has a native folder that then has this volume folder that then contains this GLX 001 message file. I have everything from this point on. I just don't have it saved at the C drive SE location. So I need to repath it. I can do it two different ways. I can go over to the right-hand side and click the magnifying glass, or I can use these changers down here at the bottom. But right now, we're going to talk about these changers and modifiers here at the bottom, just because it's a little bit easier.
Okay.
So select mode, we can append or overlay. Append means add, overlay means that I already have these BegDoc values in my database. I just need to overlay information. I need to overwrite particular fields or add to particular fields. Because we're adding new documents to our database, we want to append. We don't have any image paths. We just have native file path and text file path. So we're going to skip this area. When we load our OPT, we're going to pay attention to this.
Just back to the select mode right there. Okay, so
Yeah.
append is when you're adding it, and there's so you're adding a like this is what I want to put on it. Overlay is like you said, if I just want to replace what the BegDoc name is called, or like the
No.
native
So
file.
it's going to
Okay.
go off a BegDoc key. And maybe I got my first stat file and it had everything but the native file and text path. They just forgot those.
Okay.
So then they give me another DAT file that has this BegDoc and InDoc field and then native file and text path. They didn't give me any of this. I
Okay.
want to overlay. So it's going to say, okay, anytime you hit GLX001 in the native file and path and text file path, I need you to put this information.
Okay.
When you get to
And
the third one,
then what about the overlay and append? Is it going to do both, or?
yeah. So if it doesn't, so if it sees that BegDoc reference, it's going to overlay that information. It's going to replace the fields.
Okay.
If it doesn't see that BegDoc number, it's going to add those fields to your database.
Oh, okay.
It's
So
going to
like,
add those BegDoc records.
okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yep. Prompts for missing text files. We don't need to check this. I don't like to check this. The reason being is it will prompt you on missing text files, but if I'm getting this from opposing counsel, they might not have given me text files for files that they redacted.
Okay.
So I might get a lot of kind of false positives here, and I might automatically assume, oh my God, they didn't give me information. They're doing this on purpose. Oh my God, they hate us. I hate them too.
Yeah.
No, it's just they redacted those files.
Yeah.
So you can have them prompt on those missing text files. IOCR anyway and index.
Okay.
I really don't need to. And then when I'm going through my review, I can then see later what's
Okay.
been indexed or whatever. Maybe they skip something. Doesn't really matter. I can fix it, and it's going to be fixed anyway. Extracted text path contains file path. Yes, it does, right? Because I put it to my body field. That's an extracted text field, and this is a path. This isn't words that are contained in the document.
Okay.
You can put in all the words that are contained in the document. It's going to be one heck of an ugly DAT file, and you're probably going to have delimiters in there, so it's going to screw up everything. So most people do path. We just did an update to where we can now export that path, where before we couldn't export that path, and you kind of had to load them in a different way. But it's a path, so we need to edit our file path.
Okay.
This works just like kind of our find and replace. Load file path, this is what our load file says the path is.
Okay.
It recognizes automatically part of that dummy path, right?
Yeah.
It says, okay, this is probably some dummy path. What do you want me to replace this with? Now we can do it a couple different ways. You can go to this file and then browse out. I hate doing this linear path. It just bothers me. I don't like it.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I usually just go File Explorer, find out where I need it, and then copy the path that way. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise I'm gonna be mad. I'm not gonna find it. So I want to go out to this prod 001 folder because that's where it's leaving off at, right? So it leaves off at that prod folder. I want to go all the way to that prod folder.
I think this is where I get confused all the time too. Well, even though I hit validate just to make sure like it's the right one and update, it's all about just like you said, the less is more, right? Kind of okay, because then after you can be like, hey, you're looking for this folder, but it's in this folder. I don't have to go to the actual text folder or find the file that way, right? It's just more like, hey, this is the correct way you're going. You'll find the rest yourself, right?
The rest is gonna be in there. So as long as you get me to the prod folder, it's still gonna it's now gonna contain that text 001 and then that actual text file. So it's gonna get there. Just get me to that main folder where the rest of it is.
Okay.
Then we'll update, validate, file found. If you didn't go all the way to this prod and we updated, then it's going to skip that prod folder, right? Because it's replacing all of this
Mm-hmm.
information and it's not going to find it. So you just need to kind of go out to that main folder where Eclipse SE kind of tells you to go. It's going to say, okay, we're going to replace up to this prod folder, so you need to go out to that prod folder. We'll update this, validate, okay. Then we're going to do the same with the native path options. Same thing. It's going to say, okay, this is the dummy path field. Because we copied and pasted it, just paste it. Because
Mm-hmm.
we only went to the prod folder. Doesn't matter that this one's now natives folder 001 and the other one was text 001. We just went into the prod folder.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to find natives in there. Refresh, validate. We do
So
have
then,
the,
oh, sorry about that. So the native path, I understand that's just the just it could be like whatever file. It's the original file that you want to put into it, or like whatever it's reading from.
yeah,
What is the text path? What is the text path
the
exactly?
OCR, the text associated with the file.
Okay, what if they don't have? Will it always have a text path then?
No.
Okay.
You might not have a text path because the file is an image and has no text associated with it. You
Okay.
might not have a text file because the image was redacted. They didn't give you a native file because it was redacted, and they also didn't give you text because they redacted the document. So you might not have
Got
a
it.
native file or a text path.
Okay,
There's
yeah,
all different reasons.
that makes sense now. I think I was just thinking that it was just like its own file, but it kind of is, right? It's a
Yeah,
dot text. Okay, oh, I see where it says because it's the same file name. So there's one for the what
native.
say if it's a PDF, and then the OCR. Got it. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. That's my problem. I
No,
overthink
no,
it
no.
because I get confused. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, no. So the native file is the original file format. And that can be a PDF, it can be a message file, it can be, a text file, just however it was created. If it was scanned in and made to a PDF, it's a PDF. If it was an email, it's going to be a message file or a box file or something like. I think that's what Apple does. I don't know. I don't own Apple products. So native file will be message. You might not get the native file. They might not give you natives. They might just give you TIFF images. They might have redacted the document, so they can't give you the native file because they would give you the stuff that they redacted. Text path, same way.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just don't give OCR information. They just don't give it to you. You have to OCR
Okay,
it
so
yourself.
since we're talking about the vocabulary, OCR is like, say if it's an image and then you scan it, right, for text files, right?
Yep.
Or is it okay? Then what's
Optical
TIFF then?
character recognition. TIFF is an image file.
Okay. Okay, so that's when you want to turn like an email into an image.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, got it. Cool. Okay, so I have the opposite. Cool. OCR is what was that again? You said
Optical character recognition.
got it. Cool.
So it makes things searchable. All right, indexing options. If you are ingesting a bunch of DAT files, so if we have this DAT file, then we have another DAT file to ingest, and we have another DAT file ingest, do we want to hold off our indexing? Do we not want to index until we have all of our load files ingested? That can be a positive, it can be a negative. The positive to that is every time you ingest a load file, you're not having to wait for the index to flush and then rebuild. You're only having to do that once. So it could save you, at least an hour, depending on how large your database is. The
Okay.
downside to that is if you are in here and ingesting, and then you get pulled off. These records are going to be in someone's refresh database, but they will just see that, oh, I see some bag doc numbers for GLX001. They must have gotten the production in. I can start running my searches. Well, they're going to get bad search results because none of those GLX documents are searchable. They're not in the index.
Okay.
So they'll be running their searches thinking, oh yeah, great, you got it all in. Here's all my searches. Here's what I need to. Here, attorney, look at this. I'm going to produce it. And you're in a meeting for an hour. They're doing all this work thinking they're good to go. You come back and you're like, oh yeah, all that work is me. No, I didn't get everything in. I didn't index it.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's
So
happened
so
before.
you're saying that it's depending on the situation where you should just index it now, or is it what's the default setting on it right now?
Default setting is index now.
Oh, got it. Cool.
So you'd have to turn that off. So I edit. So merge full text index, it's going to add it as it ingests this. I can stop it. I can make it dynamic, you know, per record. I can change some.
Yeah, that's
But
usually the
it
first
just
thing I
depends.
do whenever like they're like, oh, my search is not working. Like, let's just repair your index real quick and see if it works. And then most times it fixes it, because
Yeah.
whatever they do.
Yeah, something maybe just got screwed up. Somebody didn't refresh it, or something happened. So for me, I was one of those people who always got pulled off tasks. Like
Okay.
I'd be ingesting a bunch of things and then get a phone call or get pulled off to another emergency or get pulled into something or whatever the case may be. I might be pulled off tasks all the time. So
Okay.
for me, I need it indexed every time I ingest something, because if I'm gone for an hour, I don't want somebody to be doing some work that, is a waste of time.
Got it.
That was just my preference. We have clients who specifically asked for this option and demanded this option because for them it was taking too long. This was like 3 and 4 hour process because their databases were so huge. So for them, it made sense to do a bunch of these load files maybe at the end of the week, and then at 5 p.m. index their database.
Okay.
So, they'd start their ingesting or importing data at 4 p.m. So that way by 5 p.m. they would push that rebuild index, gather everything, and everyone would be good for Monday morning.
Got it.
So action is the next box over. So we have validate or import. Validate will just make sure you had, your fields kind of mapped correctly, that, you're not putting your text file to a mail from. It's kind of checking that. It's checking whether or not you had that month, day, year setting on there. Because we selected for our case preferences that it's going to validate when we import, we don't need to do that validation process because it's going to automatically do it for us. So we're going to hit submit. In this process, it's validating it, and then it ingests it. So our start document count was 0. We didn't have anything in our database. Our in document count is 30, so it ingested or imported 30 records, and it's complete. It did it in, less than a couple seconds.
Okay.
Step 4 is verify. You're not going to see anything until you select list all records.
Okay.
So we see our records. We see all 30 of them. If we go down here to the arrows, we can see the last 10. Everything has zeros in these parents. It's because we don't have any images associated with these records yet. We didn't ingest that OPT file that has those TIFF images associated. But we can see that extracted text for each file maybe here. The length is 4,000. We can see some of the metadata fields that came over, and just kind of QC real quick what came over, make sure that it's supposed to be that way.
Quick question on this one too. You know how it goes to GLX 1, then 3, 4, 5. Does that mean 1 has pages 2?
Yes.
1 and 2. Okay. How do you separate them? Like if they wanted it like each document to have their own page.
We could. So this is a load file, so it was already separated that way for us. We could technically go into to the desktop and then split all the documents that way.
Okay.
Or if we didn't get load files and we got it like an image ingestion, we can make them all page individual.
Oh yeah, I think you're well, yeah, you are right. I think I remember seeing it in images. I'll ask the question later. Then okay, cool.
Yeah, but with the load files, this is how they were given to us. So we have to go into desktop and split the document.
Okay, so whatever you get from this, like the import data, it's just basically just saying like, this is what it was saved as. This is what you, and then you're loading it on. Got it.
Yep. All right, so let's get that OPT. We're going to go back to import data. Select our client, select our case. Again, I suggest give it a job name. I'm not going to give it a job name right here. We're going to browse out to where that OPT file is, so it should be with your load files. That was the DAT file we imported. We're going to update or upload this OPT file. It's only going to have your image key, so that beg.doc number, and an image path,
Okay.
right? And that's that dummy path. So we're going to need to update it in that. So step 2, we want to select our image path because we want to get that in there.
Mhm.
We're going to go down here to select mode. We want to overlay now, right? Because we already
Okay.
have these Bates number or production keys in here. I already have those
Mhm.
beg.doc numbers in here. We want to say anytime you see this beg.doc number, this is the image associated with it. So we
Got it.
want to overlay. Image options. This OPT file has an image path. So we can create error if image exists already. So if we already created an image for GLX1, do we want to throw an error? Do we want to overwrite it and remove existing annotations? So let's say somebody tiffed this on the fly, right?
Mhm.
And they made annotations. Do we want to overwrite it and overlay this TIFF image and remove all their annotations? Do we want to just replace the image but keep the grid assignment where those annotations are?
Okay.
Or do we just want to skip them all together? What do we want to do? I'm just going to create error if an image already exists. We don't have
Got it.
these images. It's not going to throw an error. Edit file path. So just like we did with native file path, just like we did with text, it's going to give us that, recognize that dummy file. I'm just going to
Mhm.
paste in my path, refresh, and validate. Again, it's
Cool.
only going to that prod folder. I only need to go to that prod folder, and it's going to find the rest. I can copy image native files to the case folder. It's going to be in that folder structure where your DAT files are, so you don't need to select this. You can, I guess. I don't know an
Mhm.
instance where you would. We don't need to worry about text options. We don't need to worry about native file path or indexing because we're just bringing in an image key and an image path. We're going to import, submit. Our start dot count should be the same as end dot count.
Okay.
If it is not, we did not push overlay, we pushed append.
Okay.
So it should be exactly the same. Step 4, list all our records, and now in those parents we see numbers. So that's how many pages this document has.
Would
So that's
would
why
it
it
be
went from
would it be
46.
a safe practice to back up the case before if I was going to import anything like over that? Because then, what if I accidentally
Yeah,
thought? Okay.
yeah, you could definitely do that. I mean, it's always a good idea to back up your database anytime you add something to your database.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is where we ingest our images and ingest our natives. So images would be if the other side produced to you a bunch of PDFs, or you gave the subpoena over to St. Joseph's Hospital and they gave you a PDF. That
Okay.
PDF is going to contain metadata, but a lot of that metadata is going to be false, right? They're going to give
Okay.
you, if you subpoenaed St. Joseph's Hospital, the metadata associated with that PDF is going to be when they ran that export process, right? And it's going to be whoever person at St. Joseph's Hospital ran that PDF is going to be
Mhm.
the author. That's not actually the information that reflects what the document has. It may be records from 2 years ago, but it says it was created today because that's when the person at St. Joseph's Hospital ran it.
Okay.
So it's worthless metadata, it's junk. So we're going to go to our case. We can use these C drives and E drives. Again, we always recommend you in CPath, so I'm going to browse out. It's this PC? No. Is it this PC, C drive, file share, sample data? This is why I hate the linear.
Yeah. No, it's the worst.
Training, imports, images, no load files, PDF base. So I'm going to bring in these files. So I've gone out to my file. Is it multi-page images or are they single-page images? So is it a PDF per page in a document, or
Mhm.
does the PDF have more than one page?
Got it.
Do I want to bring in TIFFs if they're in this file? Do I want to bring in PDFs, JPEGs, PNGs, GIFs, BMPs? Do I not want to bring in a particular image file? What do I want to
Okay.
do? Do I want to keep images where they currently are? Do I want to OCR those images during import? Do I want to copy images to my case data directory? So we have locations plus OCR. I recommend everyone save their records to where they need to be saved as per their protocol. So if there's an
Okay.
Eclipse SE server, and then there's a case database, and then there's a productions and an ingestion folder, or whatever the case may be, pop it in there before you go ingest it. That way you don't have to copy images to a data directory. You keep the images in the location because that's the structure you need it in. You can copy it to this data directory, but then it can get kind of messy the more you load to it because it's not as organized as if you manually did it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Numbering, are the file names their big doc numbers? Because if they are, we can bring them in that way, or we can rewrite them. Error handling. If there's a big doc number that matches it, do we want to overwrite it? Do we want to log an error? Do we want to stop the processing? If there's an error uploading it, what do we want to do? Metadata field mapping. I told you a lot of those metadata fields will be junk, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Only going to bring in the file name because that's probably not going to be junk.
Yeah.
And the file path, where is it located? That's all it's going to bring in. And then custodian, where did these records come from? We're going to say these came from, let's see, we went on a coffee thing. We'll call this Starbucks. That's the owner of the records. That's where we got these records from our subpoena. So,
Quick question also on suffix doc pages. Is that going to say, so if the PDF has like 5 pages, it's going to be like, here's well, GLX 001 and then 0.01 and then
yes.
0.02. And if they want it separate, I uncheck that doc page part, right?
Yes, but
Okay.
then it's not going to match up with the image big doc number potentially, or it will. So it just
Okay, so then that's when I would change it, like make it specify a different
so
number.
if you,
Okay.
yeah, so if I did it this way, the big docs, use the big doc for the file name, and it was multi-page images, then each page of that big doc is going to be a new number, so it will match exactly. If we suffix, then it's going to be 0.1, 0.2 of GLX 52, or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
So a lot of people like that unchecked. It just depends.
Okay. And then you
if it
just
has
want to.
Bates numbers, if it doesn't have Bates numbers. So
Got
this
it.
one, did I bring in Bates numbers? Yeah, this one has Bates numbers, so I'd want to deselect this. If it was from a subpoena response from St. Joseph's Hospital, it's not going to have big doc numbers, so I create my own numbering scheme.
Got it.
So we'll hit start. Custodian Starbucks not found. Do you want to add it? Yes, I do. This shouldn't take too long. It's only like 24 pages, so it shouldn't be too bad. So it's OCRing because I put OCR. You can see down at the bottom. That's what it's doing right now.
Okay.
It's telling me what file it's on. I can technically cancel this out if I wanted to. I can view my log file if it did throw any errors here. Or I can go into the back end and grab that log file. So it's all done. 4 docs were ingested, 24 pages total. Again, I can view that log file, see how long it took me. Ingest natives works pretty similar. It's kind of like a hybrid between import and ingest images. So I'm going to select my case ID number and my case, browse out to my files. Oops, not client data. Training data, and I'm going to go to my natives ingestion folder, and we'll bring in Rachel De Jesus. I'm going to bring in her main folder because we're going to say this is all the documentation we got from her that we asked.
Okay.
We can like expand this out and choose what we want to bring in and what we don't want to bring in if we want it to be really particular. Usually we go out to the folder of, the main folder of everything we want to bring in. So I might have, Rachel De Jesus's folder, and then I might have ingestion for 526, ingestion for 527, ingestion for March 31st. And then I just pop them in that way. Our metadata fields are going to map automatically. So my mail CC is going to go into my mail CC. It's going to pull all this metadata from these native files. Starting beg doc number. So it's going to pick up on the last alphabetical and numerical numbering system. So the last number I ingested for the prefix GLX was 152.
Okay.
GLX 152, that GLX prefix came from the records that were coming to me from defendant. So it doesn't really have any relevance. I don't want to use that. A lot of our clients use rev underscore. I've seen D for defendant, P for plaintiff, maybe sometimes the plaintiff's name real quick just to identify it. I'm going to do
Yeah.
rev underscore, and then I'm going to put some zeros in front of it and a 1.
Okay.
This is my new ingestion. This is from my client. This is the first time I've ingested documents from my client. So it's going to start with 1. If it's not, I'm going to pick up at the last number this rev ended with, kind of thing.
Okay.
File extension filter. So this is kind of like we can use this as our denisting. Which extensions do we want to include? So we're only going to ingest these type of extensions, or we're not going to ingest these other types of extensions. So if you knew there were executable files in here and you don't want to ingest them because they're pointless, put in there .exe. Native file options. Like I said, I recommend you save your data you're going to ingest or import already to your folder structure, so that way it doesn't kind of get messy. Extracted file options, attachments, zip files, where do you want them to go? Use case data directory, or do you want to use a specific directory? So if you're keeping original file location, I would suggest use specific database directory and then browse out to where that file location is. If you're copying files to your data directory, just use case data directory. I suggest keeping those extracted files with your original files, right? Because that just makes sense.
Yeah.
In this particular case, I'm just going to keep them separate because I'm not going to grow out this area because I don't want to add junk to my sample data.
Okay.
Email hash values, what it's going to create that SHA-1 hash value on. Custodian, where did I get these records? These are Rachel De Jesus. Why is my, I don't know if I'm like typing weird or my keyboard's messed up today. I'm going to blame it on the keyboard.
Yeah, there you go.
Deduplication. Do we want to perform deduplication? If yes, do we want to do it at case level or custodian level? So case level, we'll look at all the duplicates in your entire case, no matter the custodian, which might be good because that'll make sure you don't have duplicates for the entire database. Custodian level, maybe you only want to run it against one custodian. Maybe you're getting documents. You got a production from Rachel De Jesus. You got a bunch of these folders. And you had asked for all documentation between January through June of 2020. You know, we're not in June yet, but you asked for all of that. And for some reason, when she gave it to you, she skipped April. So you go back and you say, hey, I don't have any documents for April. You need to give me April. So she goes back, she gives you this file, you look at it, she gave you again from January to June, but this time it includes April. You can't really break it up.
Yeah.
Because that's going to take a lot of time. If you perform deduplication at the custodian level, it's going to only bring in those new documents. So theoretically, the new documents would be only April, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it wouldn't be running in the entire database. It would just be running against that custodian, and it would kind of quicken your ingestion. But
Yeah, that
those
makes
April duplicates might be duplicates throughout the rest of your database too. So you just need to be mindful of what you're doing. Make selected custodian primary custodian. So if I have Ariana Ackers in here and Henrietta Becker, do I want to make Rachel De Jesus now the primary custodian? So she's going to be the main witness? Or do I want somebody else? Index options. Do I want to do the indexing now or later? Again, same, just like that. Import. So I have a lot of native files I want to ingest today, and I'm doing multiple sets, and then index at the end, or am I indexing every time? And then do we have a password list? Do these records have passwords associated with them? Do they not? Do we know about it? If we don't know about it, we can leave it blank. It will tell us if they're password protected documents, and then we can go up to reprocess. And then it will let us run those passwords against it. So we're going to hit start. Rachel De Jesus is not found. Do we want to add her? Yes, we do. And it's going to start ingesting those files for us.
With that password load file, so let's say if it's like it's a text file where it says here here's a password, so anytime that anything that's password protected, it'll try to run that password on it, right?
Yep.
But in it won't do it natively, right? So all it's saying that's just gonna pull whatever metadata it has from the file, if it's like a
Yes.
PDF or something like that, or okay,
Yep.
got it.
Yep. It's not gonna rip off that password protection. It's just gonna open it, grab the metadata, and then you'll have to know which password it is if you want to see that native kind of thing.
Got it. Yeah, because I remember Diego saying something about like our program doesn't change natives. I mean, it just takes like just takes data, but it'll never change any natives.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So we had 56 duplicates found. It skipped over them. We can look at the CSV file to see what were duplicates, who they duplicated against. If we didn't have that password list, we'd have this reprocess option. We can view log file here. We can see how long it took, what our starting records were, now what we have, what time it ended, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Next option is TIFF. Do we want to create images? We may have images, we may have natives, we're going to have a mixture.
Okay.
What do we want to TIFF? So we'll process the entire case, but we're going to exclude Excel spreadsheets maybe, because those can get kind of ugly. We can include them, we can not include them, it's up to us. And whether or not we want to create color images.
What Excel's like, say if it's like like it's like a table, but like sometimes it'll turn into like 4 pages rather than it just got it.
Yep. We'll hit start, and we'll make images for everything that doesn't have an image.
Cool.
That should be pretty quick because I think a lot of our files have images. All right, so 304 documents were converted to TIFF. We're good there.
Okay.
OCR, like I said, again, same process entire case, do it off a safe search. You can choose an OCR language. We can only choose one at a time. So we either choose English or we choose French or Spanish, whatever the case may be. We can include the image key in the OCR text. So if we're doing a full search text, we can search for that OCR or that prodbeg no number. Re-OCR pages that have been rotated since the last time we did OCR. Re-OCR all documents and pages.
That's going to take a long time, right?
That's going to take a long time. It's also going to potentially get rid of some really good OCR.
That image rotation right there, when it says auto image rotate, is it like whatever, like it's going to be readable, or is it there's no way to choose if
what
you
the
want
system, what the system thinks that it should be rotated at, or if you've already been into your review system, you've rotated documents and now you want to re-OCR them because they didn't come in good because they were not rotated correctly for the OCR. Use viewer rotation so that way it doesn't de-rotate your documents. Do not replace existing extracted text. This is a good option, but it also can get you in trouble. So sometimes you will get text files that only contain the prodbeg doc number, or you'll have documents that come in with extracted text that only contain that prodbeg doc number. It won't contain any other text that actually relates to the document. It's just a number. Or it says, CNATA file, or text not included, image redacted, something like that. Technically, that's something in the extract text, right? So it's going to see that as extracted text and skip that document. But that text really has nothing to do with the document itself. You want to overwrite it. So you will have to know, do not replace existing extracted text. If you choose that, you'll have to know whether or not your documents contain words like that in the extracted text file. Maybe do some advanced searching.
Okay, so mostly people leave it unchecked then? Is that what okay, got it.
It just depends. I mean, you have to know your data.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything's case by case, literally, right?
Yeah, literally. Batches. We'll talk about batches real quick. Not a lot of clients do it, some do. It basically kind of breaks up a database and records into manageable chunks. So if you have a really big database and you have several paralegals reviewing documents, it might be nice to break them up in batches and say, okay, Betty, you're getting the first 500. Jim, you're getting the next 500. And that way they don't like topple over each other, right? Because
Okay.
Betty could have it sorted one way, Jim could have it sorted another way, and they're looking at the same document, or they're totally off, or they have to remember where they left off, or they resorted it another way so then they don't know, and documents are skipped or documents are duplicated, and it just becomes a mess. So you can create review passes to prevent them from toppling over each other. You can use those coding forms so that way they can only code a certain field. They can only code or tag a certain type of document on this review pass. You can break it
Okay.
up in chunks. So first review pass usually is for attorney-client privilege or relevancy. And break it up into chunks that way. So first review pass is going to be whether it's relevant or not. And literally all that coder is going to do is look at their chunk of documents, and is this document related to the Trinity Food Service, or is it related to Trinity High School? If it's related to food service, it's relevant. If it's related to the high school, it's not relevant. And they literally just look for that particular information. They don't care about whether it's attorney-client privilege. They don't care about redactions. Nothing. They just care about whether or not it's related to Trinity High School or Trinity Food Service. So it can kind of break down the process and make things go smoother, and streamline the process in a sense where, okay, that big chunk has been weeded out. So now we're only looking at the smaller subsection as to whether it's attorney-client privilege or not. Those other 500 records may have attorney-client privilege in them, but it's irrelevant. It's not relevant to the case. So I don't have to look at those anymore. I only have to look at the smaller subset. I also have paralegals who like to break up their entire database into batches, because maybe this case isn't like super urgency where like deadlines are coming up, but there's a lot of documents and their just goal is to get through 150 documents a day. That is their goal. That is what they are going to do. 150 documents every single day. They'll eventually get through the database, right? So they'll break up their entire, it'll only be them. And every day they sign into a new batch, finish up 150 documents, and are done for the day with that case.
Okay.
It just kind of keeps them on track. There are people who like to check things off their task list, that kind of stuff. So I've seen that happen too. So we'll create one. We'll do review pass one. We can rename it here. We can upload like a PDF or a text file with instructions. You know, are they doing that Trinity High School versus Trinity Food Service? Are they doing an attorney-client privilege? What are they doing? If we created a coding form for the first review pass, we can do that. We can use Attorney Jim's coding form. What do we want to do? Automatically set documents to reviewed if coding rules are met. So that forces them to use those rules in that coding form. Otherwise, they can't go to the next document. Groups and users who are going to be able to see these review passes and these batches. What do we want to make the batches off of? Are we going to do it over the entire case? Are we going to only do an image key range? So maybe we did entire case first. Now we've broken it down and it's only going to be this range, or only documents tagged something like relevant. We could do that. We could build a search. So it's only going to bring in that smaller group, and then we're going to do review pass too. We'll do entire case because then we don't have anything tagged. We can batch it by category, so we can break it out. Maybe a custodian field selected as a category field. So the first 100 documents, first 150, whatever the case may be, are all going to be Ariana Ackers. So if I'm the first reviewer for the first batch, I'm looking at all documents from Ariana Ackers. I'm not looking at documents from Betty. I'm not looking at documents from Bob. It's all one custodian. So I might be more consistent on my coding because I'm only looking at one person and I'm not looking at 7 different people. Batch size, how many documents are broken out into batches. So it could be up to, or as low as 10 up to 1,000. So typically 150 to 200 in the real world is really where people are. We don't have a lot in our database, so I'm just going to put 10.
Okay.
Batch priority, this is just default. Is it a low priority, medium priority, high, critical? You got to get through this. This is batch. You can go in and assign particular batches, particular levels. Maybe if you need to get to the first 10 batches in the first week, they're critical. Then you're going to have the next 4 batches the following week or whatever the case may be. You can do it that way.
Okay.
I'm going to assign them all low right now, and then we can reassign them later. Include family documents into the batches. So this is kind of nice. So if we're doing batches and that 10 document break ends with an email and then the attachments go into the next batch, do we want to keep those attachments with the email and just make that batch a little bit bigger?
Yeah.
Or maybe not go on to the next document because, it's going to break up weird. So we just create a new batch. So your batches might not be all at 10. They might be 14. They might be 9 if we choose this include family documents kind of thing. And then we'll create the batches. Oops, I selected that category field on accident. Let's deselect. Create these batches. All right, so 37 batches were created total because there were 396 documents in my database.
Okay.
We'll go to manage batches. Batch ID just 1 through 37 because there were 37 of them. Batch size, like I said, they might be a little different depending on how many attachments. We're keeping those families together, so they might be a little bit off. Priority, here we can change to critical. Maybe the first few are critical, and these are high, kind of thing.
Okay, so this is like just saying if we had a firm, it would be like we need to get through batch 1 through 10 ASAP, and then like 11 through 15 can kind of be low. Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, just letting people hey, you need to get through these batches first.
A little bit more customization for them. Okay, that makes sense. Got it.
Assign to, so we can assign it to users. I didn't assign any groups or users to this batch, so I can't assign them. You can see when they were last accessed, when did that user last go into it, how many documents they've reviewed so far, how many are remaining, do they have any documents on hold, did they say they're not coding this document until they look at more, which might be a thing. They might be looking at an email and they're like, I don't know, let me skip it, let me put it on hold for right now, let me look at some more documents, I'll come back to it and see if I still feel that same way, if I know which way it goes. Whether it's assigned or not, will automatically update. And then we can actually delete batches if we wanted to.
Okay.
We can split batches. So if I'm working on a batch that's 300 pages or 300 documents and I got slammed, I just can't get to it. I got to the first 100 and I can't devote any more time to it. Sorry, I was trying to help you. I just can't. You can split that batch and assign it to someone else, or just have reassign it to someone.
Okay, that's cool.